Hello? Rescue hooks to rescue, Mayday! Get ahead, West. Fast Mayday, what's your location? Get the panel out of here, hurry up! We need radio silence, I need water in that 2.5-inch line. 48 inch water in a 2.5-inch line. To the rope, to the rope, to the rope! 35 in the rear, 35 in the rear!
Welcome to the Emergency Traffic Podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Emergency Traffic Podcast. This is episode number 72. This is the podcast where we review and discuss firefighter line of duty death reports and the circumstances surrounding these fatal incidents. This week, we review the April 2017 NIOSH report about the line of duty death of firefighter William Tolley of Tower Ladder 135 in New York City. When firefighter Tolley was violently ejected from the basket of a 75-foot aerial platform that was caught momentarily on a brick edge of a parapet wall when retracting during a fire in a 5-story multifamily building. One important factor to note about this tragic incident is that it was very similar to the 2009 double line of duty death that occurred in Texas, where 2 firefighters died after falling from an aerial platform that was also caught on a parapet wall during training. In both these incidents, safety restraints could have potentially prevented fatal injuries. Please join my co-host Denis and I as we review and discuss this report and learn. Let me bring Denis in now. Hello, Denis. How are you today?
Hey, Paul. I'm very good, sir.
Good. Keeping warm. Cool air.
Yeah. Nothing too exciting on this end, I'm afraid. We're still waiting for spring to fully sprung. But I did take all the protective covering off my trees, my shrubs, under the belief that we're not going to get another massive ice storm, snowstorm that's going to kill them all. So it's great confidence, although I'm only partially hedging my bets because I still got the winter tires on the car.
yeah. My son took them off last weekend, actually did the brakes and changed tires. And then we had a little bit of snow there in central Alberta on Sunday, and quite a bit more down around Calgary and stuff. And eastern Saskatchewan, east of Regina, Rocanville, Esterhazy got like a foot or more of snow on Monday last week. So it's crazy.
We've had brush fires here, so they've grass fires, brush fires. So that season's upon us, and we're into the official regulated burning season. Starts April 1st here in Nova Scotia and runs to
here too in Alberta, and we've got lots of brush fires. There was a big brush fire yesterday at it's called Musquecheese. It's a four large Indian First Nations reserves between Ponoka and Wetaskiwin, and they had 9 fire departments out there last night trying to contain a fire. It was windy and burning up. They got it under control last night. There's another one down by Lethbridge. There's been lots of big grass fires and stuff going on.
And how about that one in New Jersey? Man, that was a big fire.
Yes. Yeah, it was bad.
And caught a lot of people's attention, I'll bet.
That's for sure. And I think they charged a person or something. Somebody told me.
Yeah. Well, it wouldn't surprise me.
I'm not sure, but we're in the season for sure. And the wildland firefighters in Alberta, actually, they're part of the Alberta Public Service Union, and they have a strike vote coming up. So their negotiations with the government broke off. Mediation didn't work. And so we're going to see what happens here in mid-May, whether they're going to be going on strike or not. So that'd be bad.
Yeah. Well, it's a bad time to be getting into a labor dispute. I mean, the parties got to agree to things sooner.
Yeah.
But it's, pressure always focuses the mind, I guess.
Yeah. So here's another one of these FDNY tips from their tips book that they publish. And anybody, if you're a training officer and you want some quick things to pick on and grab to talk about this tip book, just search FDNY tips and you'll pull up. They do a book every year. This is 14 of 2023. And this just talks about building collapse. Recently in Brooklyn, a floor collapse occurred in a building under construction. One construction worker was killed. The first floor collapsed into the cellar in a V-shaped fashion. This tip was developed to review the different types of floor collapse. All members are encouraged to read articles by Chief Ray Downey, who made the supreme sacrifice in 9/11, to further review this topic. And there's a link in the tip that you can print from the book. Different types of floor collapses: V-shaped floor collapse, collapse of the floor at the center of the floor beams to the broken center of a floor section collapses down upon the floor below. Both ends of the floor section remain partially supported by the ends or rest up against the outer bearing wall. So there is some search area there. An
So
A-frame,
Paul,
or yeah,
Paul. So people could wonder how could a floor collapse in the middle, but think about, and this building we're going to talk about today is like this, right? So you got masonry walls around the outside, and you got column lines in the middle that are steel and could be on steel supports. So you could have a fire that causes the steel to give away, where the ends of your joists, your beams are sitting on the wall pockets of the brick, and so the steel gives away in the middle. The brick is still holding up the ends, so you can have those V collapses. It can happen like that. Again, know your
exactly.
building, right?
Yeah, or the beam degrades over time, or the supports fail, and you get that V-shaped floor collapse. Parking garages and stuff like that off would do something like that. An A-frame or a tent floor collapse, they call it. The floor collapses in the shape of a tent when the floor collapses and an interior portion or wall holds up the center of the falling floor. So you have the perimeter falling down. If the interior partitions were not present, the result would be a pancake collapse. Victims can be possibly found in the debris or void if it's created in either a V shape or an A frame. A lean-to collapse: one end of the floor beams remain partially supported by a bearing wall, and the other end of the floor beams collapse on the floor below, or collapses but remains supported, classified as supported or unsupported, depending on the position of the collapsed beam ends. And then an unsupported lean-to collapse, otherwise cantilever. After the collapse, the remaining structure is unsupported and hanging freely in the air. Debris can be left on the structure or slide off and fall down on members below. And then, of course, the usually the least successful one for rescues, the pancake floor collapse. Collapse of one floor section down upon the floor below in a flat pancake-like configuration. When floor beams pull loose or collapse at both ends, has the fewest void spaces, least likely for victims to survive. Operating in a void in a pancake collapse is extremely dangerous due to the size and the secondary collapse danger. So something to keep in mind and study on your own once in a while. Beware of floor collapses. We're starting to see some more of them. Like I think New York had a parking garage collapse, and there was another building collapse somewhere else recently too. So something to keep in mind when you are training. Some other current events. I saw a post that the Canadian Fire Chiefs Association is potentially hoping for an exemption from import tariffs on emergency vehicles. So this is something they've been working on, and they're trying to get an exemption. As people may know, there's been tariffs on both sides of the U.S.-Canadian border, and there's been retaliatory tariffs, et cetera, et cetera. We won't get into that. But these tariffs are potentially making emergency vehicles that are already ordered a lot more money before they're delivered. So governments are working to hopefully, or I guess agencies are lobbying governments to exempt emergency vehicles, because it's just a tax on the municipalities and the taxpayers that have to pay for them in the end anyway.
Yeah, tariffs just affect the purchaser is what they do, right? So,
Right.
but right now, of course, in Canada, we've got an election, national election. Voting day is Monday, right? So,
Yep.
so there's really no government per se right now. It's kind of interim, right? So things may change starting next week. So any waiving of tariffs or whatever on our side may very well occur or not occur, right? It depends who's asking and who's granting at the time, right? So we
Yeah.
won't know until at least next week, and that's optimistic to be that early.
Right. Yeah. Well, hopefully anyway, because we're
Yeah,
talking some big numbers here that would be passed on to municipalities if they have to pay tariffs on their already purchased
yeah.
vehicles.
Well, consider. I mean, what's an aerial these days? I mean,
Two
2,000,
million.
2
Yeah.
million,
Yeah.
2 million plus, and tack on
Hmm.
25%.
Yeah.
Throw in a pumper.
I know my community here in Lacombe is in the process of ordering a pumper and an aerial, I think, and because the last aerial, the pumper they're trying to replace, I think, is a '96 or something, and aerial's a 2005. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah. So in 1996, what would they have paid for that bumper, Paul?
Oh my
They
gosh,
might
I
have
don't know.
paid
Commercial,
350,000,
yeah,
400,000.
commercial top mount enclosed Freightliner, yeah, 300,000 and change, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like
And now
1.5 now.
1.5 million. I know, crazy. Of course, and they want a
No, yeah,
custom.
no inflation there.
Yeah, and they want a custom, of course, which we won't get into that because Doug's not here to
Yeah,
argue
yeah,
with
yeah,
me about it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, unfortunately, we agree on that, Paul. So
yeah, yeah.
it's not much of a
You and
show when we agree.
yeah. Oh well.
Hey, Waldorf.
Waldorf and Statler can't agree on everything. The firefighting in Canada article just came out here this week, talking about PFAS and PFOAs,
And
polyfluorinated alkyls in turnout gear and in foam. Right now in Canada, it's not illegal, but there's some cautions out there. And the big thing is, limit your exposure. The gist of it is, if you don't have to wear your turnout gear to the medical call or to the public event or whatever, don't wear your turnout gear because there is PFAS in your turnout gear and it does come off a little bit and you could be contaminating yourself. And the same with foam. I know many big departments are being told right now only use foam if you absolutely have to, until they change over their immense stocks of foam to a non-fluorinated
yeah,
foam.
yeah. Well, you know what your foam is, right? So if it's PFAS or PFOS, know what's in it, right? So
Yep, I changed all mine in 2019, 2020. The fire department, my
yeah,
last fire department was on. We had a bunch of older
yeah,
foam that was PFOS, and we got rid of it. And the newer stuff was PFAS, but we ended up buying a non-fluorinated foam to replace it all.
yeah, yeah. Wash your gear. If you get new gear, wash your gear. Wash it a couple times.
Then the last but not least in the current events was it's been circulated on social media the last few days was the NTSB report and meeting. It's actually a video of the meeting that was presented about the New Jersey ship fire in Newark, New Jersey, where two firefighters tragically died during the firefight. So interesting. I watched about the first hour and a half here just today. Interesting to learn more about what happened there. And the odd thing is, there's a guy who does a YouTube channel. It's called "What's Going On with Shipping." Saul Mercogliano does a podcast or a video, and he looks at, because there was another roll-on roll-off ship fire last week in Amsterdam, and they actually put it out successfully. So he's done like a little video on his channel, What's Going On with Shipping. I watched it last night, and he compares the two events. He's a firefighter as well. He was a full-time firefighter, but he's a part-time firefighter now, and he's a merchant mariner. And he does an excellent analysis on the two fires and what was done differently, where things fell apart to the tragic loss that happened in Newark, New Jersey.
Yeah, it's one of those unfrequent high risk events.
Exactly. Yeah. And I just taught safety officer course all week here in Alberta, and high risk, low frequency events, good old Gordon Graham and situational analysis and stuff like that. So, yeah. Okay. Let's see. So this week's episode, on April 20th, 2017, a 42-year-old male firefighter from Tower Ladder 135 in New York City, FDNY, died after falling 5 stories from a platform of a tower ladder that was responding to a multiple dwelling fire. This information in the podcast is compiled from the NIOSH report of November 16th, 2018, which is F 2017-11. The fire department, Career Fire Department, of course, FDNY, one of the largest, if not the largest in North America, employs about 10,000 uniformed members and over 3,600 ununiformed or uniformed EMTs and paramedics. So a total of 14,000 uniformed personnel. The fire department provides fire protection, technical rescue, primary response to biological, chemical, radioactive hazards, and emergency medical services. The department's executive staff is divided into 2 areas that include a civilian fire commissioner who serves as the head of the department, and a chief of department who serves as the operational leader of the department.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the training and experience. And FDNY certainly does training right, at least the descriptions that we're going to give you do, although training is probably one of the issues of this incident, how it happened. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But the state of New York requires that fire departments train their career firefighters to a level equivalent to NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, Standard 1001, which is the standard for firefighter professional qualifications. So the state requires 100 hours of annual in-service training. So NFPA 1001 has two levels. There's firefighter 1 and firefighter 2. We'll talk a little bit about that in a second. The fire department operates and maintains its own fire training academy also. Recruits are selected based on a civil service examination list that's maintained by the city. The fire department requires all firefighters to complete then once they're accepted, to complete an 18-week training program at the fire department's fire academy. And at the completion of this recruit school, the firefighter recruit then receives the following certifications. So they'll be certified to NFPA 1001 as a firefighter 1, which is the introductory level, the first level, and firefighter 2. They'll also be certified to NFPA 472, Standard of Competence for Responders to Hazardous Materials, Weapons of Mass Destruction, long title, but anyway, at the awareness and the operations level. This is just your regular firefighter, not a hazmat specialist. They'll also have their certified first responder, which is a medical response certificate with defibrillator, so CFR-D is what that's called. So after they graduate from the fire academy, the recruits will then go through an 18-month probationary period, so a year and a half. So they're on the job for a year and a half, and if they fail their evaluations and so forth, they can be released, of course, during that period. So the recruit firefighter becomes a probationary firefighter and is then assigned to either an engine company or a ladder company. The probationary firefighter is evaluated during this 18-month period by their officer, and these evaluations happen at the 3-month mark, the 5-month mark, the 8-month mark, the 11th month mark, and the 17-month mark. A lot of fire departments don't do those interim evaluations. And so you can get to the end of your probationary period and they tell you, I'm sorry, you're not any good, and you've got no clue. So really, by doing this regularly like this, you get to shape the probationary recruit firefighter and get them, on the right track. Paul?
That's a pretty solid, probation period and assessment. I think that's, there's not a lot of places that are as thorough as that. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. So they're not looking to get rid of the probationary firefighter. They're looking to guide them and mold them. That's what they want to do. Because, there's a lot of work went into a probationary firefighter. I mean, by themselves, but also by the department, and you don't want to wash somebody out if they've got potential. Anyway, in-service, I'm just speaking extemporary here. In-service training for fire department members also consists of the following: company level training, which would occur on a daily basis or whenever they're on shift. Also fire academy training. So all companies continue to attend at the fire academy at least twice a month. And as many as 60 companies per day go to service and report to the academy for training. So these are probably one day, or police call this block training, or, they go there.
That's amazing. They pull their companies out of service twice a month for training at the academy. Like a lot of places, you get there maybe once a year, maybe twice a year, 6 times at the most. Yeah. And I mean, this is amazing. That's a lot of training.
It's a bit of a drive for some of the companies too. It's the training academies down out in the corner, right? So, and they also do kiosk training, which is just exactly what it sounds like. Fire departments operate a number of websites and online training materials that are devoted to member training and to safety and to preparedness. So that's good also. So there's, I guess, basically no excuse for not getting training with FDNY.
Yeah, New York, and in conjunction with ULFSRI and several universities in the area, pioneered the modern fire behavior training program that ULFSRI has, and it's free to anybody who wants to take it, guys. So go look it up online, Fire Research Safety Institute, and they've got 30, 40 courses on there you can take.
Yeah. You don't have to be FDNY to take those courses.
Right.
Anyway, the training process is designed to assist with keeping members informed on the latest tactics and information from the department. So this is a method to communications. I mean, the fire chief's not going to get out and visit everybody. That can't happen every day when something new comes. And so if there's a hazard or a risk for firefighters or something new going on that they need to be aware of, this is part and parcel of how they communicate that. and on fire service subject matter experts. So they've got their people. You hear them all the time in FDNY who focused on certain areas, develop new techniques, and get that out to the membership. Members are required to complete at least 1 hour of training each tour worked, day and night tours. So yeah, difficult when you're in a busy house, but that's what they're looking for.
That's awesome. The equipment and personnel for this particular call at 14:20 hours on April 20th, Box 417 was transmitted for an apartment fire. The following units were dispatched: Battalion 44, which was a chief and a chief's aide, so they're doing it right. That's awesome. There was 3 engines, 277, 286, and 291. Each engine contained an officer, an engine company chauffeur, so that's the engineer or the driver, a nozzle person, a backup person, and a control, like door control person. So each of those 3 engines had 5 people. And then tower ladder 112 and tower ladder 130, or ladder 112, so a straight stick ladder, and tower ladder 135, which is the subject of our podcast today, which contained an officer, a ladder company chauffeur, a roof man, an outside vent man, an iron man, and a can man. Those were the personnel that were on these apparatus when they were called to this call.
Yeah. So that's 27 personnel on the first alarm.
That's good. That's awesome. For a multifamily, it's not too much, but it's a good start. Much better than the last one, which was like 12, I think, that we did in Evanston, Wyoming.
Yeah, they were definitely short. So the apparatus I'm going to give you... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Paul.
Apparatus involved was a 75-foot tower ladder manufactured in 2010. This is a Baker aerial scope for those that are curious. Very popular apparatus in New York. One of the only areas in North America that uses Baker aerial scopes is sort of the Northeast.
Yeah, they're not Baker anymore. It's Seagrave manufactures them.
Oh, okay. Right. They changed.
Since
They got bought by
1999, 95,
yes,
something like that.
Right.
90s,
Seagrave, yeah. The apparatus was placed in service in March of 2011 as Tower Ladder 135. The department operates both 75 and 95-foot tower ladders of this design. The boom assembly consists of 4 box sections with telescope within each other. The first section is alloyed steel, and the 3 telescopic sections are aluminum alloy. The extension mechanism is 2 double-acting cylinders which provide power extension and retraction. The basket or platform is also constructed of aluminum alloy and has a floor area of approximately 15 square feet. So 14 is the minimum for NFPA, so just over that. In modern terms, a bit of a smaller basket for a platform. Some of them are much larger these days. Permanently mounted on the front surface of the platform is a Stang intelligent nozzle, permitting flexibility in water tower operations. The underside of the floor and front railing of the baskets may also be covered with a fire-resistant shield. And we've got some pictures of these equipment and stuff that we'll post on our social media when we publish this podcast. Whenever a tower ladder is on operation, the pedestal position must be staffed, so that's the one at the bottom. This provides an extra pair of eyes to warn of impending danger and override any basket controls in case of an emergency. The 3 controls, similar to those on a metal aerial ladder, are provided at the turntable. These controls are for raising, lowering, extending, retracting, and rotating the boom assembly. Operating controls at the pedestal allows for smoother operation than the controls in the basket, because you always get extra movement when you're in the basket because of the dynamics of the extended boom, obviously. The controls include a master power switch, which provides electrical power for the control valves, a master panel lights, engine start, dead man control, and a platform basket control. So you can enable the control at the tip or disable them, and a dead man control like a foot switch or something, so that it has to be, someone's got to be there to operate it. You can't operate unless that dead man's down. It's got an engine start button to allow the engine to be restarted in case of a stall from the master control console. In the basket, the platform, it activates the basket control station, as I already mentioned. Oh yeah, here they explain them, sorry. The deadman control, just pressing a foot pedal at the base, activates the system and the engine throttle control. This movement also deactivates the basket control by activating the hydraulic system in case of electrical failure. The use of the platform control switch is necessary whenever members or civilians leave or enter an elevated basket. This is to ensure against unintentional movement of the basket by touching a control handle. So when you have people moving around in that confined space, you're rescuing people out of a balcony or a window or something like that, you don't want a control to get touched. So typically you'll disable the platform controls so that if a control is inadvertently moved, it doesn't move the aerial. The tower ladder is provided with intercommunication system or intercom, allowing for the basket to pedestal communications and vice versa, which is the most effective means of communication between the basket and the pedestal on the truck and the ground. The department's standard operating procedure on tower ladder operations under general precautions, the following safety precaution is described. No member shall operate in the basket unless he is wearing the installed safety belt or a life belt or a personal harness, which is secured to a substantial part of the basket. If this is too confining, it is possible to provide working room by forming a loop 1 foot in diameter in a life-saving rope around a substantial part of the basket and using a bowline to secure the loop and then hook your life belt or personal harness into the loop. So that's to give you a little bit more reach if you're, got a pike pole or a New York hook and you're pulling down some soffit or you need to reach for something and you can get a little further from the basket, but yet you're still within a foot and you're still retained in the basket in case you were to lose your balance or something was to happen.
Yeah, there's different strategies you can do with those. Like I know in our last platform that I bought, we had made sure that there were tie-offs, loops in, both at the back of the platform and towards the front or side of the platform. But there are times where that's too restricting, and so we used to use a short webbing harness with a loop on either end, and normally you'd pass that webbing through a carabiner and double it back, and that held you pretty tight. But then you could, and I think it was only 2 feet long. Then you could actually just use the webbing on doubled, if you will, straight, and that gave you an extra foot of movement, and that was enough to do anything within the platform. Wouldn't allow you to leave the platform, but so in this case, they're using their personal rope and so forth. The good thing about using a personal rope is you're supposed to have it with you all the time.
The problem with longer lanyards in aerial platform baskets is the platform is rated to hold the load of a person, hanging from it or whatever, 200 or 450, 500 pounds, but the platform is not rated for dynamic load. So you don't want to have a 6-foot lanyard or something, because if you were to throw a 250-pound firefighter down a 6-foot lanyard and have that on the basket, it may exceed the loading expectations of the design. And that's why you only have short little loops to allow you to work from the basket, but not to leave the basket and work, away from it.
Yeah, exactly. So it takes some planning and it takes some experimenting to get that right. And I still see departments, and I see photos of guys out on the roof of a building, and they're still tethered to the platform.
Yep.
And if they fall off, chances are very good that they're going down, and the aerial's coming right after them.
Exactly.
They're not designed.
Yep. They're not designed for that.
Don't do that.
Yep. I know a big metropolitan department here near where I live that I remember selling them airline or something, and they wanted the airline to be just shorter than the lanyard, the long rope that they had to go on the roof on air. And I'm going, why do you have a 10-foot rope on your platform? Like, you can't do that. But anyway, what do I know? I'm just a salesman. So,
well, you can do it, but you might have a bad outcome.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the structure. Yeah, talk about the structure of the building itself. So there's a lot of these buildings in New York, and so the structure was a 5-story H-type building. So that's like 2 apartment buildings with this other short apartment building that joins them in an H pattern. So in this case, the long side of the building paralleled the street, and that other long side was on the Charlie side, and the connecting piece of the H ran in the Alpha towards the Charlie side. So anyway, it was classified as a Class 3 non-fireproof occupancy. So that's masonry exterior with basically a timber interior, essentially. So the building was constructed in 1927, and the building had wing stairs, which I'm not sure I fully understand, but they say that the stairs serve the the wing only that particular wing where the stairs were, and they didn't. There was no connection to the other wing. Anyway, maybe somebody can tell us exactly what that means, because I couldn't find a good explanation for that. Anyway, there are 10 apartments per floor, with 5 in the A wing, which I guess as you're looking at the front door is to the left, and 5 in the B wing. Anyway, on all of the floors except for the first floor, which only had 9 apartments and not 10. So there were no elevators in the building. So this is a 5-story walk-up is what this is. And around the roof at the top, there was a parapet, which was 41 inches high, that included a concrete cap. So it's a brick parapet, and there was a concrete cap on it, and it's 41 inches high. And the building had a raised roof, and it says in the investigation that it's an inverted roof or raised roof. So there's a little I'm not entirely sure what was on this building, because if you look up inverted roof means the waterproof membranes on first and the insulation's on second with gravel on top. That's what that means. But what they're really referring to here is that the structural roof is horizontal. It was built on top of the building, and then there was a rain roof that stops the water from getting down, that's raised above that, and it says on 2x4s, but it would be on whatever 2x6s possibly, and so it's raised up, so it's on little vertical pieces of wood, higher in one area, lower in other areas, that helps to direct the water in certain directions. Anyway, that's what was on the roof. And so that's one of the reasons for the parapet, is it hides all of this from the street level and seals off those edges. So the note in the investigation says a raised roof in this case is defined as a roof which is raised above the roof beams. So in other words, above the structure beams, which is essentially the ceiling on the top floor or below you, and is supported by 2x4s. The extent to which it raises varies over the roof in order to provide proper drainage. So you may have drainage scuppers, or you may have internal drains, depending on how big the roof is. The result is a large open cockloft under that. So between the upper structural beams, or the ceiling of the top floor, and the rain roof, there's a gap in there, and they call it a cockloft, like a place where chickens could live, I guess. Maybe they did in the old days. Anyway, a cockloft's a common term for that narrow. It's not really an attic, because you really can't get in. It's just a space, but certainly where fire can spread easily. This type of roof is also called an inverted, but I would dispute that. Inverted just means the waterproofing's below the insulation. Anyway, a reversed or a rain roof. So anyway, they had this roof on the top, which wasn't structural. So if you were cutting a ventilation hole in the roof, you'd have to cut down through the rain roof, and then a foot or two below that, there would be the structural roof, and you'd have to cut down through that afterwards. So it has a bearing on how you would ventilate a building like this. Anyway, the apartment building had 2 fire escapes on the front side facing the alpha side. So as you look at the front of the building, there's the door, the main entry door, and on the left-hand side, there was a fire escape that went up the full 5 stories. And on the right-hand side, there was another fire escape. So and those are on the alpha side. And there were a similar pair on the Charlie side. And there was also some on the Bravo side, and they opened into the courtyard of the H. So the apartments were designated by the number of the floor, and the letter is the apartment number. So for example, apartment 2A, which is where the fire was, is the A apartment on the 2nd floor. So this building construction was under what they call a new law tenement, which those in New York who study that would understand, which were tenements built between the 1901 and 1929. So new law tenements were built between 1901 and 1929, and these are some of the basic features of those. They were generally 6 or 7 stories high, so mid-rise to the beginning of high-rise. They were 35 to 50 feet wide and up to 85 feet in depth. So in this case, it would be 85 feet in width and 35 to 55 feet in depth, because these buildings were parallel to the street. There are 5 or 6 apartments per floor. The first floor, which is the cellar ceiling, because these buildings had a partial cellar under them, is a fireproof construction, and there's no penetration, so it's unpierced. The entrance to the cellar is by way of exterior stairs. And so it was done this way for, back in the day when you had coal furnaces in the basement. It helped to improve fire safety of the building if something went wrong with that equipment. The interior stairs themselves are fireproofed, in other words, enclosed in partitions of fireproof construction, most likely masonry back in those days, or tile, right? That looks a lot like block, but it's really tile. Apartment doors were constructed of fire-resistant materials. The second means of egress is either another stairway that you can get to or is an exterior fire escape. The fire escape is more generally what's found in these buildings. All interior walls and furred out partitions are required to be fire stopped at each story. So instead of having like balloon construction on the interior where the furring goes from the ground floor all the way up through, it's fire stopped at each level, similar to platform construction now. Steel I-beams are introduced to carry the floor joists. Remember we talked about the lean-to type collapse a little bit earlier. So anyway, there will be steel beams that carry the floor joists, and they could span enlarged areas. And the steel beams are generally supported by masonry walls. And then part of the new law tenements that were built after 1916 up till 29 had the following design features added. These tenements had a larger floor area, up to 150 by 200 square feet, 200 feet. And to avoid being required to be built to fireproof construction, floor areas were broken up into areas of 2,500 square feet or less. This meant that between some apartments there were brick or fireproof partitions, which effectively limited the horizontal spread of fire. However, dividing walls, for instance, on the top floor only went as high as the ceiling, so it didn't go through the roof like a firewall would now. So this results in a very large undivided. So the firewall went up to the bottom of the ceiling or the roof, and above that was the open cockloft. So if you had a fire on one side of that firewall, it could easily cross over just through the cockloft. Fire can and often does spread throughout these large cockloft areas. And you'll see lots of video of fires doing exactly that, particularly in New York and older Northeast buildings. Unprotected steel beams have been used for support of some of the floor joists. These steel beams are supported by vertical steel columns, which run the height of the buildings. Wooden floor joists, which basically beams, run horizontally from brick walls to a steel girder or from a steel girder to a steel girder. So you'll get different behavior between the exterior masonry walls, interior masonry walls, and interior steel beams. You can get different behavior on how each of those will survive a fire in that space. There are also dumbwaiter shafts in the building, and they're also usually located in the apartments. In most cases, two apartments would share one dumbwaiter. I'm not sure what the purpose of the dumbwaiters back then were, but they do exist.
Maybe
And we're
groceries
not
and
talking
stuff.
garbage chutes, eh? Sorry?
Probably groceries and stuff for when you went shopping, and then to bring everything up and down instead of up the stairs.
Right. Didn't have to climb 5 stories lugging your
Yeah,
wagon behind you.
right. Yeah.
Right. So probably was a popular selling feature. Anyway, dumbwaiters will terminate on the roof in a bulkhead. So a bulkhead is a raised area with a skylight on top. And it's just raised to keep the water from running down, is really all it's raised for. And the structures are not sprinklered.
So upon arrival, here's our little virtual 360. Upon arrival, the structure was a very large 5-story brick building. Second from the end, in a block-long group of these buildings. Across the street, on the Alpha side, was a block-long of 3-story walk-up townhouses and a 4 or 5-story apartment building on the corner, under construction with scaffolding and stuff on the Alpha side at the end of the block. The Bravo and Delta exposures were identical buildings. The Charlie side was an alleyway, which was also used as a parking area, with similar multi-family buildings across the alleyway. The Alpha side consisted of brick, with multiple windows for each apartment, and shared balconies between pairs of apartments, with the fire escapes that we talked about before were on each of those shared balconies. At the time of the incident, the outside vent firefighter from Tower Ladder 135 was wearing his full PPE, including boots, pants, bunker coat, self-contained breathing apparatus with integrated pass, fire-resistant hood, and helmet. The firefighter had his structural firefighting gloves, but was not wearing them. The outside vent firefighter was equipped with a personal escape system, but was not tethered to the platform. This will be important later. None of the firefighters' turnout gear or SCBA were evaluated or tested, and they were not considered to be a contributing factor in this fatal incident. The weather at the time at 13:51 hours, April 20th, the temperature was 60 degrees Fahrenheit. The dew point was 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Relative humidity was 69%. The winds for the east-northeast at 8 miles per hour. There were scattered clouds with 10-mile visibility, so a beautiful spring day, basically. There had been no precipitation in the past 5 hours. The weather was not a factor in this incident. On April 20th at 2017 at 14:20 hours, they were dispatched Battalion 44, Engine 277, 286, 29, Ladder 112, and Tower Ladder 135 for Box 4017 for a report of an apartment fire in a 5-story apartment building. On this block, there were four 5-story apartment buildings, all connected to each other. The dispatcher gave responding units 2 additional addresses for the fire. The addresses were for 2 of these apartment buildings. The apartment fire was actually in an apartment building that was not identified by the address, so it was actually the next one over, if you will. Engine 277 arrived on scene at 14:22 hours. Ladder 112 arrived on scene a minute later. The outside vent firefighter from Ladder 112 found the fire, which was communicated to the officer of Ladder 112, and then he called for a 1075 at 14:25 hours. I believe 1075 is a working fire multi-family building. Per the apartment's SOP, a ladder company has the responsibility to find the location of the fire at all fire incidents. The officer of Ladder 112 called the 1075. This is a notification signal transmitted in the judgment of the incident commander. Conditions indicate fire or emergency that requires additional response or resources. For Box 4017 at 14:25, the officer of Ladder 112 was command until the arrival of Battalion 44 at 14:30 hours. The additional response for the Box 1075 to Box 4017 was Battalion 35 Squad 252, which was assigned as Engine 252, Squad 288, Ladder 140, which was a fast truck, so a rapid intervention team truck, and Rescue 4. Tower Ladder 135 to arrive on scene behind Ladder 112 at 14:24 hours, so just before the battalion chief had arrived. Engine 277 stretched an 1 3/4 hose line into the fire building. The fire was located apartment 2A. Engine 291 stretched a backup 1 3/4 line into the building. The officer of Tower Ladder 135, the forcible entry man, and the can man all went to the 3rd floor, apartment 3A, to check for extension, probably. The roof man of Tower 135 went onto the roof via Ladder 112, so he didn't go up the tower, he went up the ladder. He met the roof man of Ladder 112. The outside vent firefighter of Tower Ladder 135 was going around to the rear of the building, side 3, or Charlie as we know it, but stayed on side 1. So he didn't. He was going around, but he stayed. Side Alpha, due to the occupants in the windows. He then went to the platform of the tower ladder. The ladder company chauffeur of Tower Ladder 135 was at the pedestal, and the chauffeur first placed the tower ladder to exposure Bravo, so to the left of the fire apartment. But then he moved the platform over to the fire building to a 2nd floor window to check on a woman that appeared there. The woman was fine and was told to stay in her apartment. The ladder chauffeur then moved the platform towards the 5th floor for a woman on the fire escape. At this time, the ladder chauffeur radioed the outside vent firefighter to take over the controls of the platform as it neared the 4th floor. The chauffeur stated he couldn't judge the depth perception, so it was better for the outside vent firefighter to operate the platform from the basket because he had a better depth perception. He could perceive how far the basket is from the building. It's extremely difficult from the ground to judge the last few feet, especially when it's quite vertical. And if you look in the pictures here, this is 5th floor. It's a 75-foot aerial, so this ladder is at full extension and it's quite vertical. The outside vent firefighter checked on the woman on the 5th floor fire escape. She was fine, and she was told to go down to the street via the interior stairs of the next apartment building. Not too sure how you get there, because they're connected but not connected. But anyway, doesn't matter. Battalion 44 arrived on scene at 14:30 and assumed command. The fire was knocked down at 14:31 as communicated from the officer of Engine 277 to command Battalion 44. The fire was knocked down with 1 inch and 3/4 hose line. The outside vent firefighter from Tower Ladder 135 then started to move the platform towards the roof. The outside vent firefighter placed the platform over the parapet wall of the fire building. The roof man from ladder 112 walked over to the outside vent firefighter, because remember, 112 is against the roof as well. The platform was on the inside of the parapet wall and was at almost maximum extension, so it actually had gone over the parapet wall and was on the inside of it. With the fire knocked down on apartment 2A, the Tower Ladder 135 outside vent firefighter tried to raise but not extend the platform, so he was going raise on the elevation cylinder, the platform did not move. The outside vent firefighter wasn't sure what the problem was. It was keeping the platform from moving when he moved the control. The outside vent firefighter asked the chauffeur down below to take over operation of the platform because he thought maybe it was a control issue. Unknown to the outside vent firefighter, the platform was caught on the inside of the parapet wall, underneath the platform by brackets that were used to stabilize the platform. So they were supporting members of the structure for the basket. He didn't realize.
Yeah, they'd be more obvious in the pictures on the socials.
Right, yeah.
There's particulars about this particular platform that makes this easy to happen.
Yeah, it has a large obstruction underneath the basket, and if it's gone past that wall, you have to get it away from there. The investigation was unable to determine what caused the platform to come loose from the parapet wall, but all of a sudden, a violent reaction of the platform came loose from the parapet wall, which caused the outside vent firefighter to be thrown out of the platform. The Tower Ladder 135 outside vent firefighter fell 5 stories, approximately 60 feet, to the concrete sidewalk below. Battalion 35 arrived on scene at 14:35 hours. As part of that 1075 response, Battalion 35 was in the street with the apparatus awaiting an assignment. After the outside vent firefighter fell, a mayday was transmitted by Battalion 35 at 14:39 hours, which was 19 minutes 52 seconds into the incident. 1066 was then transmitted for Box 4017, followed by the transmission of a second alarm for Box 4017 at 14:42 hours. The second alarm was then cancelled by command. All units on the second alarm were cancelled except for the safety battalion. Firefighters from other companies rushed to provide medical care to the firefighter. The firefighter was moved to a stretcher and placed in Medic Unit 45 Yankee, which departed the fire scene at 14:43, arriving at a trauma center at 14:45. The firefighter was unfortunately pronounced dead at 15:18 hours after extensive resuscitation efforts, I can assume.
Imagine being the chauffeur
At the
on the turntable and watching this guy come flying at you.
Yeah, and he's going like, "What did I do? What happened?" Yeah.
You worked 14 years with the guy, and he falls right in front of you and is killed.
Yeah.
How could you keep doing that job after that? I mean, it would be very hard on your head.
Impossible.
Yeah. Anyway, there were a number of contributing factors that the NIOSH investigators identified, and these are some of those factors that they identified through the investigation. So, the building construction, particularly how the building was construction and the roof operations that were going on, related to that. In other words, the firefighters on the roof and access to the roof. So they identified those as issues. So there were procedures for the operation of the tower ladder, as Paul says, raising the ladder and not extending and raising. The design of the apparatus itself, the platform design itself. We'll talk a little bit about that, I think, in our comments. Some training issues, and the fact that the multifamily residential building was not sprinklered. I'm not sure how that exactly connects because I don't know that their standard operating guidelines would have changed in this case.
I think the problem is, as you alluded to in the description of the building, which I let you go on and on about the engineer coming out, is that these are a huge risk, these buildings. So, like, if they get a fire and it gets beyond room and contents, it's a bad day. You've got 5 of these buildings that were built 100 years ago that have all kinds of penetrations and a caulk loft. So they have this rain roof on top. So once it gets into the structure, it's extremely hard to get to. So if one of these buildings gets going, it's a really bad day. And I think so that's why the extra response, that's why this firefighter went to the roof, because I'm just going to go check. I'm not sure that everything is copacetic. The people are fine. The guys say that got the fire out, but I'm going to go check for extension. And that's probably why they listed this as it's not sprinklered. And so if it gets going, it's going to be a really bad day.
Yeah. And this building, of course, you couldn't walk from the Alpha to the Charlie side. The simple way for them, and they often do this, is you walk the roof, right? So you walk
Right.
around the perimeter of the roof looking over to see if you can see signs of the fire, whatever the case
Yeah,
may be.
fire extension or anything.
It was necessary to get on the roof. By the way, this fire was caused by an incense stick left unattended.
An incense. Oh, okay.
Yeah, burning incense where nobody was
Right.
home.
Yeah.
Just how trivial these things can be.
Yeah, exactly.
Have a bad outcome.
I thought you were going to say lithium ion batteries, but 2017 they weren't around yet.
Anyway, recommendation number 1. Fire departments should ensure that firefighters recognize roof design, height restrictions, and safety issues when operating tower ladders in the vicinity of parapet walls. So height restrictions meaning the capabilities of the equipment, the aerial. So the department's standard operating procedures, just discussing these points. The SOP for aerial ladders and tower ladders discusses placement, where to place the vehicle, and operations for the variety of buildings that there would be encounters throughout the different boroughs in the city. In other words, know your district. It is impossible to describe each scenario the ladder company will encounter during the fireground operations in an SOP. You can just generalize, right? There can be all kinds of reasons why the ladder is not in the exact spot, parked car where it shouldn't be, other apparatus in the way, whatever. In this instance, the stabilizing bar is attached to the waterway beneath the platform. In other words, part of the structure that supports the platform itself, snagged on the concrete cap of the parapet wall as the outside vent firefighter from tower ladder 135 was positioning the platform near the roof. The outside vent firefighter positioned the platform on the inside of the parapet wall, which caused the platform then to become stuck. It probably just slipped over and was jammed there, and he didn't really realize it. With the fire knocked down in apartment 2A, the tower ladder 135 outside vent firefighter then tried to raise, but didn't first extend the platform, and it wouldn't move. So the outside vent firefighter wasn't sure if the problem which kept the platform from raising, maybe that cutout switch was on. What did he know? He didn't know. So the outside vent firefighter asked the chauffeur to take over the operation of the platform. So he's down below on the rotator, on the turntable. So the outside vent firefighter indicated that he thought there was a problem with joystick operations. So the duties of the outside vent position of a ladder company include assisting the ladder company chauffeur in front of the building when aerial or portable ladders are needed for rescue or removal, to ventilate the fire area from the exterior by providing horizontal ventilation, or if the location of the fire department is not obvious from the exterior of the building, the outside vent guy would communicate with their officer what he sees, basically. So the outside vent firefighter for tower ladder 135 was originally going to go to side 3, so this is a bit repetitious, but just reminding you, to the Charlie side to determine if ventilation needed to occur, so signs of fire, in other words, when the tower ladder arrives. So that would be his normal assignment. So the outside vent firefighter from 135 never even made the attempt to go to the Charlie side because there were occupants on the Alpha side of the building that needed attention. So he noticed there was a civilian on the second floor window, and he got in the platform and told the chauffeur to take him to the second floor window. So eventually the firefighter took the platform to the roof of the building, and he stopped at the 5th floor and so forth. So we recited that earlier. So at this incident, there was no need for rescue of occupants of the building because they were fine via the tower ladder. There was one resident on the fire escape at the front of the building that the firefighter did talk to and was thinking about putting in the platform, but the occupant stated she did not need assistance. So then the outside vent firefighter took the tower ladder platform over to the parapet with the intentions, I guess, of getting on the roof. The roof firefighter had talked, so that was from 112, ladder 112, talked to the outside vent firefighter and then turned away. So he was talking to him, and then he turned away to go back to his whatever he was doing. And at that time, he heard a loud noise, turned around and noticed that the outside vent firefighter was no longer on the platform. He then rushed over to the parapet wall, suspecting there was a problem, saw the outside vent firefighter lying on the sidewalk. Based on the interviews with firefighters at this incident, no one realized that the platform was actually stuck on the parapet wall. This was in daylight, too, actually.
And this is partly why I chose this episode. And we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but this is exactly what happened, in 2009 in Texas with a platform that they weren't familiar with, and they got stuck on a parapet as well, and they operated the controls and nothing happened. The guys on the ground actually were wondering what was going on because the truck actually lifted off its stabilizers trying to unhook the platform, and then eventually the brick broke and the platform bounced out into the air and 2 firefighters passed away. They fell out, and 2 other firefighters stayed in the platform, fortunately. But the same kind of thing. So I think before, when they talk about, it's important to, you have SOPs and all this kind of stuff, but you need to know your equipment. And you need to know that the platform has a big thing hanging underneath. He's trying to get to the roof. There's no way you could even jump down to the roof of this parapet wall because the platform was so far above it. And I think that's really, it's why I picked this incident, is no one realized the predicament they'd gotten themselves into with this platform, which was, tragic.
Yeah. Like you really need to be aware of the design of your equipment. You really need to, which is the next recommendation, Paul?
Yeah, so, ensure tower ladders and other aerial platforms are designed to reduce or eliminate the potential for snagging onto buildings or other surfaces. Now, the firefighters probably don't have any input in what kind of aerial they pick, but if whatever you get, you need to be aware of it. Aerial platforms are typically required to be maneuvered in very close proximity to buildings and structures of various different configurations and construction materials. The aerial device should be designed to reduce or eliminate potential to snag or catch on buildings or other structures as the platform is being maneuvered into place. Some options, such as lifting eyes or lights that protrude below the platform, should be avoided. While it may be impossible to reconfigure a manufacturer's basic aerial platform design, because this is the way they've been building it forever, it's essential that area operators be aware of any possible snag or catch hazards and operate accordingly. When a firefighter wants to lower an aerial platform that's several inches away above a parapet wall or resting on it, the firefighter must make sure that the aerial platform is clear of the parapet wall before lowering the aerial platform. When the aerial platform needs to be repositioned, the firefighter should raise the platform, lifting the platform several feet above the parapet wall, and then the firefighter can retract the platform without snagging or catching the aerial platform on the parapet wall. Therefore, just about every manufacturer stipulates the aerial device is designed to be operated, which is unique to North America. They're almost always designed to be operated in a cantilever position, in that they're not supported by the building, above the roof, above the windowsill, etc. They should not be placed directly on the roof. Instead, the aerial device should be positioned so a gap exists between the platform and the roof. If at this time the aerial device does touch a roof or parapet, there should not be force created by personnel to create any damage. At this incident, the outside vent firefighter for Tower 135 raised the platform to the roof of the fire building. The firefighter placed the platform over the parapet wall. He did not realize that the brackets on the bottom of the platform became caught on the parapet wall. I've done this too, and I've operated platforms extensively. I did demonstrations all over North America, and I mean, the one time in Salt Lake City, I mistakenly put the platform in the water, and I knew that I had caused myself a problem. The water was coming in underneath, and the heat shield was going to exceed the weight limit of the platform. So, in a panic, I go to lift it up to get it out of the water, and of course, I pulled the wrong lever, and I turned to the right, which scooped up more water, and the overload alarms are going off, and I'm praying to myself as I pull gently up on the up lever, hoping that we would go up and not the truck come up. So these things can happen, and the guy probably didn't think anything of it. Like, why isn't this basket moving? He may have even tried the other way. No one knows. And then he asked the guy at the pedestal saying, hey, can you try it? Because I can't get it. And then bang, off it goes.
Yeah. But there's so many differences in designs, right? I mean, This
Yeah.
particular one was an aerial scope, and if you look at how an aerial scope's designed, there's a lot of mechanism and so forth underneath of it, and it stands well above the boom that holds it up. So it's particularly hard to get off of that particular platform onto a parapeted roof. It's a long way down.
And it might
And then,
be, it's part of the design, the popularity of the aerial scopes is they're renowned as a very bulletproof or a very robust aerial design. They're extremely tough. They take a lot of abuse. And so that's why these brackets underneath are probably beefier than you might
yeah,
get with another platform that might not take
yeah,
as much abuse, but that you wouldn't have as big a protuberances underneath the basket.
yeah. Yeah, and then you look at a Sutphin, and it's the exact opposite, right?
Yeah,
The
it hangs
platform
from the
hangs
top.
hangs way below the boom coming up, so it's like the complete opposite. But your average
Yep.
aerial is level with. So where I'm going with this is like every aerial has its pluses and its minuses,
Yep.
and it's really up to the operators and the people who work with those aerials, the firefighters, to understand what all of those are. And if you've got an aerial that's difficult to get over parapets or to work with parapets, and you should have deboarding ladders built into the platform, or that you can easily place that you can use, so you don't have to put the platform over the parapet. There's different
Yep.
schemes, but you basically need to know what you're doing, and that's why it's so dangerous, for instance, for departments who get a new ladder, just to put them, or a new platform, just to put them in service without making sure that everybody's extremely aware of how they work and what the shortcomings and the things you need to watch out for. So you need to know your equipment.
You want to do the next one?
So yeah, recommendation 3, you need to ensure that firefighters use a ladder belt and an escape harness carabiner to secure to themselves to the platform during tower ladder operations. Well, something that meets the NFPA standard, right? So the use of safety belts when operating an aerial ladder or a tower ladder is required by NFPA 1500. NFPA 1500 is the standard on fire department occupational safety, health, and wellness. So in that standard, Section 8 says that when members are operating from aerial devices, they shall be secured to the aerial device with a system that is compliant to NFPA 1983, which is a standard on life safety rope and equipment for emergency services. And there are a number of options. You can wear ladder belts, you can wear full harnesses, you can wear seat harnesses. There's a number of them that meet this requirement. And even just a ladder belt will do it.
Yep.
So it's
Yep.
relatively. And in this particular case, the firefighter was using bunker gear with an escape harness built into the bunker gear. And so wherever he went, he had that equipment with him. So the fire department, which is FDNY, their SOP on ladder tower operations at that time, under the general precautions, described the following safety precautions. No member shall operate in the basket unless he is wearing the installed safety belt, meaning in his gear, or a life belt or a personal harness, which is secured to a substantial part of the basket, a tie-off position, in other words. And remember, they talked about you could make your own tie-off with your personal rope. If this is too confining, like in other words, it's keeping you in the wrong place in the basket, you can't do your job, it is possible to provide working room by forming a loop 1 foot in diameter, no more, basically, in a life-saving loop around a substantial part of the basket, like the handrail or an upright or something like that, by using a bowline to secure the loop, then to hook your life belt or personal harness into this loop. So it gives you a little extra room. Each firefighter and fire officer in the department wears turnout gear equipped with their personal escape system. The personal escape system has the following 5 common components. So everybody has this. They have an anchor hook with a hitching slot. They have a descent control device. They have 50 feet of heat resistant and cut resistant rope, typically 7.5 millimeter in diameter. They have a connector carabiner, and under carabiner to connect from a tie-off point to the rope or to the system. And they have a carrying pack that contains all of the above and fits into the bellows pocket that's part of the turnout gear pants. The firefighters assigned to the roof from Tower Ladder 135 stated that he saw the overhead vent firefighter outside of the platform when it was stuck on the parapet wall. So he got out of the platform at one point, possibly trying to figure out what was going on. He thought the firefighter was going to jump or climb down onto the roof. Remember, the parapet was 41 inches off the roof. The fire department must ensure that before an aerial platform is moved, that there is clear communications between the firefighter in the platform and the ladder company's chauffeur, so top to bottom communications, as to what needs to occur in terms of safety. The fire department's standard operating procedures should require that the firefighter in the platform exit the platform if possible. If this is not an option, then the firefighter in the platform should be secured or tethered to the interior of the platform. I think they're referring here to if the the chauffeur takes control of it. The firefighter above either needs to be tied in or not in
Yeah,
the
either get
platform at
out
all.
or tied in. Yep.
Right. So because you don't know what the guy at the bottom is going to do, right? You want to be
Yeah,
tied in. And I've been at the top of those, and when they're all the way out, they can
I.
be wiggly.
That's right. Yep.
Can be quite exciting, especially on the 100+ footers.
Aha.
At this incident, the overhead vent firefighter was equipped with a personal escape system, but was not tethered to the platform. So he wasn't using it, in other words. When the platform suddenly came loose from the parapet wall, the violent reaction caused the firefighter to be catapulted over the rails of the platform. Basically, cracked the whip. He was on the tail end and he
Yep.
got thrown.
Yeah.
Bad.
Tragic.
He
Recommendation.
probably had seconds to realize what was going on, and that was
Yeah.
it.
Barely.
Barely.
Recommendation number 4: fire departments should provide proficiency training for firefighters on operations of tower ladders. All members of the fire department should be required to maintain proficiency of their defined duties and functions. Goes without saying. NFPA 1500 requires this to occur annually. Fire departments have chosen to use a minimum company standards program. Many fire departments, minimum company standards program to meet or comply with proficiency evaluations and the requirements of NFPA 1500. This can be done at the company level or through the fire department's training academy. Also, fire departments should ensure information regarding the operations of tower ladders near parapet walls was in their standard operating procedures. At this incident, based upon the training records, it's unknown if the outside vent firefighter was evaluated annually on the operations of the tower ladder. So we're not sure when he operated last. Remember, this is a chainsaw axe guy. This is a vent guy. He's going up to wherever and he's venting. How familiar was he with operating the platform is the case. Recommendation number 5: code setting organizations and municipalities should consider requiring the use of sprinkler systems in multi-family residential structures. Well, I mean, I just threw this in here, but I mean, this has been going on forever. Retrofitting sprinklers is a big proposition. But unfortunately, it's probably why these guys were, hey, I'm going to make sure this roof isn't going. We're going to make sure this isn't extending. I think that was part of the cause here for that outside vent firefighter to go and make sure that there was no fire on the roof. And he conferred with his fellow from Ladder 112. And then Ladder 112 thought he was going to get down. The platform was at least 6 or 8 feet from the roof when it was over the platform wall. So that's probably why he didn't get down and then tried to get away. And this the result. We know what happened. The
Yeah.
reason I put this, so sorry.
I was going to say that one of the issues they talk about here is training, but this guy, he was assigned to the aerial platform. That was his job. He'd worked there for 14 years. I mean, he works on shift, and he probably works a 56-hour week. I mean, that's almost 3,000 hours a year, minus whatever he would have in leave time or training time. So it's hard to believe that he wasn't familiar with the equipment and familiar with the SOPs. So why wasn't he tied in? Is it
like I just
was
like I said, I taught a safety officer course this week, in incident command system safety officer, and maybe complacency is a common enemy. Routine fire, the fire's out. I'm just going to go up, have a look around, and then didn't realize what happened, and he didn't tie in. He thought he was going to get out, and then decided he couldn't. So I'll just go down, and
yeah,
forgot to
yeah,
reattach his.
yeah,
Or attached
yeah.
to the basket.
Yeah.
Complacency
Was
kills,
he
right?
tied in the whole time, and then got out of the basket to try to investigate what the problem was, got back in and it came loose and he got tossed?
Don't
Or
know.
was this just a habit they had of not tying in? And, it wouldn't be the first incident. There'd been, multiple incidents that he's gone to and they hadn't bothered to tie in.
Right.
How would the company officer, would they have permitted that, if that was the case? We don't know.
As I
And it's
meant, but
not
it's
in the
something to be.
not in the
It's something.
investigation report.
It's something to be aware of. That's the big thing is you need to be
Yeah,
aware of this. Don't get complacent in a job that can kill you. You
yeah,
can't train too much.
yeah.
And the problem that I have with this incident is, you know, in 2009, related incident in Texas, two male career firefighters, aged 28 and 45, died after falling from an elevated aerial platform during training in Texas. They were participating in an exercise to familiarize firefighter department personnel with a newly purchased 95-foot mid-mount aerial platform truck. A group of 4 firefighters were standing in the aerial platform, which was raised to the roof of an 8-story dormitory building at a local college. The platform became stuck on the concrete parapet at the top of the building. During attempts to free the platform, the top edge of the parapet wall gave way, and the aerial ladder sprung back from the edge of the building, then began to whip violently back and forth. 2 of the 4 firefighters standing in the platform were ejected by the motion. They fell approximately 83 feet to the ground and died from their injury. We covered this emergency traffic in episode 41 in January of 2024. The sad part about this one is they had harnesses in the department, and they normally wore harnesses in the department in their other aerial platform, but this platform wasn't in service yet, so they didn't remove the harnesses from the in-service truck and wear them during training. They did extreme training right away. We're all guys, you all got to take it to the end, so we're going to go way up there instead of training low and getting used to it. And the aerial didn't come with harnesses, and so they didn't wear any. And during all the demonstrations and stuff, they never wore harnesses in this area. Which I was an aerial salesman, and I bought harnesses and carried them with me when I did demos. But I have to say, I was not the average aerial salesman. Most people that I worked with did not carry harnesses until later in my career in the 2000 and early 2000s, and they started to enforce us that we always had to use harnesses. It only makes sense. I mean, stuff can go wrong. It's mechanical, or we can make mistakes. We can go the wrong way. So
Yeah.
it's
It's
happened twice. Let's not have a third.
it comes from a feeling that it can't happen. So, but safety exceptions will get you eventually, and it's. I don't see this any different as failing to wear your helmet when you're working around an aerial that's raised, for instance. You see guys walk under the aerial; they don't have their helmet on. Somebody drops a wrench or a nozzle or anything falls off the aerial and hits you on the head, man, you're done for. So
Yeah.
simple things like this, and we see this happening, and most of the times you get away with it, but there's times when you don't. And
Well, you
so be
mentioned
safe.
this when we were chatting on Messenger or whatever before the recording, and like you said, in the 72 episodes we've done, this is the third aerial fatality of someone falling off a ladder. And we only cover stuff after 2020. So typically, and also, and in fact, it's the fourth because we had the brake fail on the ladder in Boston. We did that episode too, but it wasn't the aerial; they were driving. So if you have an aerial ladder, please be extra cautious. Make sure you know what you're doing. Make sure you follow procedures and be familiar with the equipment.
Yeah, yeah. If you got a small department that don't have a regular crew assigned to the aerial, like maybe you're only riding with two guys on the aerial, and one's an officer. Like who's your experienced guy that's operating from the bottom? Who's your experienced guy that's operating from the top? Like do they know everything they need to know about that aerial? And are they the guys that are working in those positions on the next shift that comes on duty and the next shift after that? If you're in a volunteer department, who's driving the aerial? Who's operating the platform? Is it the same people all the time? Does your volunteer department set up companies based like an aerial company, an engine company, a rescue company? So at least those people are familiar with that equipment on a more regular basis. Like, are you thinking about the fact that practice makes perfect, and following good procedures all along and doing detailed training to
We used to have
trying to
a log.
foresee where things can go wrong?
We used to carry a logbook in the truck, and you had to get so many hours before you could operate it. And every year you had
Yeah,
to get so many hours operating signed off by an
yeah,
officer that you'd been operating
yeah,
the aerial. When we first got it, it was myself and one other guy were the only guys that had experience with that aerial.
Yeah.
And so we had to be around all the time. And we actually held it out of service for a while because we didn't have enough operators
Yeah.
to make sure someone was always available.
But the focus tends to be on driving, right? That's where your first focus, driving the
Right.
truck, getting it here, getting it there. Even fewer departments talk about placement and placement of the aerial, where to place it. And placement of the aerial is more than just where to place the aerial. It's where the other guys have placed their vehicles too, and where they shouldn't have. So there's a broad aspect there. And how's your town or county or city council going to feel about their $3 million, $2 million aerial truck parked because Joe's off today, and he's your only guy that can do that, right? So you got to have depth also. So there's many, many, many aspects, and frankly, when you're up in the air, one mistake will kill you, and falling tends to be deadly, and this is certainly a case where that was true.
Yeah, exactly. So, thank you everyone for listening to another episode of Emergency Traffic Podcast. Please tell a friend about us, spread the word. Hopefully, something you hear on here will help you at your next call, and let's be safe out there.
Take care every day.